Good evening and welcome. The board will now reconvene in open session at 7:13 p.m. on August 7, 2018 in the Plano ISD Administration Building. I'm Missy Bender, President of the Plano ISD Board of Trustees, and on the board's behalf, I wish to extend a warm welcome to all who are present and to our web and video viewers. We will conduct our meeting focusing on the district's two major ongoing goals: ensure the continued improvement in student learning, and ensure the efficient use of financial resources and budgeting. Let me introduce my fellow trustees and staff. Seated to my left are Sarah Bonzer, Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Teresa Williams, Chief Operations Officer, Nancy Humphrey, Board Secretary, and Trustee Tammy Richards. Seated to my right are Board Vice President Dr. Yoram Solomon, Trustee David Stolley, Trustee Jerry Chambers, Trustee Angela Powell, and Executive Assistant to the Superintendent and Board of Trustees, Sharon Nowak. Ms. Bonzer, will you verify that we are in compliance with the provisions of the Texas Open Meetings Act regarding the notice for this meeting?
Yes, President Bender, this meeting has been posted in compliance with the provisions of the Texas Open Meetings Act.
Thank you. We'll now have an inspirational message, and Trustee Angela Powell will offer this evening's inspiration.
Well, welcome back teachers, staff, parents, and students to the 2018-2019 school year. If you're new to the district, I would like to say that the Plano ISD is a district of excellence. Our job at the leadership level is to enable teachers and staff to empower students. Teachers are smart, caring, and capable folks. Teachers deserve trust and respect to do their jobs. May we look upon our Plano ISD teachers and let them strive to share their knowledge with gentle patience. Let's help our students to learn, smile, and belong. We are the District of Excellence. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Powell. We now have the opportunity to welcome Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts this evening to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Students, would you please join us here at the front of the room? And the rest of us, please stand. Scouts, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The rest of you may be seated. Scouts, one by one, would you take a moment and introduce yourself to everyone here tonight? Tell us your name, where you go to school, your troop, and how long you've been in scouting. I know that's a lot. So who are you, where are you from, what's your troop number, and how long have you been in scouting? Let's start with the oldest students. Let's start with the students on the left, my left.
I'm Wyatt Morgan. I've been with Scouts for about a year now. I go to Murphy Middle School, and I'm in Troop 295.
Hello, my name is Russell Ramsey. I go to Dallas International School. I'm from Troop 999, and I've been in Scouts for 6 years now.
My name is Morgan Austin, and I am in Troop 295. I go to Plano Academy High School, and I've been in Boy Scouts for about 3 years.
Hello, my name is Connor Palmberg. I've been in Scouts for about 4 years. I go to Plano Senior High School, and my troop is 295.
My name is Spencer Reeves. I go to McMillan Junior High in Wiley. I'm from Troop 295, and I've been in Scouts for about 3 years.
I'm Nikhil Jiva, and I go to Plano East Senior High School, and I'm from Troop 295, and I've been in Scouts for about 5 years.
My name is Vikrant Jiva. I've been in Scouts for about 1.5 years. I go to Murphy Middle School.
My name is Arne Majumdar. I go to Murphy Middle School too. I'm in 7th grade, and I'm in Troop 295.
My name's Roshan, and I go to Murphy Middle School. I'm in 7th grade, and I've been in Scouts for around 2 years.
I'm John Stewart. I'm going to the Academy High School. I'm with Troop 1776, and I've been in Scouts for 4 years.
My name is Rashab Iyer. I have been in Scouts for 2.5 years, and I'm from Troop 25, and I'm in Robinson Middle School.
My name is Nina Gibson. I've been in Scouts for about 6 years now. I go to Carlisle Elementary, and I am in Troop 6593.
My name is Addison. I've been in Girl Scouts for 6 years now. My troop is 6593, and I go to Davis Elementary.
Hi, my name is Audrey Hendrick. I go to Bells Elementary. I've been in Girl Scouts for 3 years. I'm in Troop 6596.
Hi, I'm Grace Ottinger. I go to Wells Elementary. I've been in Girl Scouts for 3 years, and I am in Girl Scout Troop 6598.
So Scouts, before you leave, we're going to take a picture together. But before we do that, are there any board members who have anything they want to say to the Scouts?
I'll chime in because, excuse me, my voice is gone. I'm a mom of an Eagle Scout and also a Girl Scout, so I'm really proud of what you guys are doing. You're learning so many skills and leadership skills, and you're doing things in the community, and I commend you for all of that. So whether you stay in Scouts through the end or if you're, driven somewhere else, I'm going to encourage you to stay in Scouts through the end. Get your Gold Award and your Eagle.
I want to say you are always welcome here. We often see many Scouts at our board meetings. I see a lot of Boy Scouts, and I'm so happy to see them. I'd love to see some Girl Scouts come too to some of our meetings. And even on top of that, if you have something to say, you can come and speak to us over here. You just sign up and you can come and tell us something that's on your mind. So we've had some students do that too, and that means a lot to us. So we invite you to do that. So thank you for being here, and thank you, moms and dads and family members. Are you here? Do you want to stand for a minute? We'll recognize you. Thank you for volunteering your time to create wonderful young men and women. Debbie, do you want us to gather behind them? Okay. Thank you. Students, you are free to leave. You don't actually have to hang out with us for the rest of this meeting. Thank you for being here. We now move to the recognitions part of the agenda. Ms. Oliver, do we have any recognitions today? Okay, thank you. All right, I now invite Susan Modisette, Assistant Superintendent for Campus Services, to begin the introductions of all administrative appointments that have been approved between June 12 and August 6th.
Thank you, President Bender. I'm so pleased to introduce to you our newest members of the campus leadership teams. I'm going to start with our newly appointed campus principals. Melanie Schulte is the principal at Frankfurt Middle School. Melanie is coming from most recently a position as an assistant principal at Otto, and she's joined this evening by her husband Toby and her two children, Camden and Hallie.
Next, I'd like to introduce Pam Clark. And Pam, we tried to make this really easy, so we've named Pam to be the principal at Clark High School. Pam is going to get really tired of hearing that. Pam has most recently served the district as the Associate Principal of Curriculum and Instruction at Plano Senior High. And Pam's joined this evening by her husband, Craig. Our new principal at Wilson Middle School is Mark Lederer. Mark is coming from Schimmelpfennig as an assistant principal, and Mark is joined this evening by his wife Lindsay and his children Kyle and Catherine. Kristen Fissler is our new principal at Beatty Early Childhood School. Kristen has most recently served as an assistant principal at Weatherford Elementary, and joining Kristen this evening is her husband Brian and her daughter Grace. Our new principal at Pearson Early Childhood School is Jennifer Haw. Jennifer has most recently been an assistant principal at Sagling Elementary, and Jen is joined by her husband, Doug. And Karen Noble. Our new principal at Byrd Special Programs Center is Jana Sandal. Jana has been serving the district as an assistant principal at Andrews Elementary, and she is joined by her husband Durlas and their sons Jonathan, Ian, and Isaac. Our new associate principal of curriculum and instruction at Plano Senior High School is Corin Prince. Corin is coming from Jasper as an assistant principal, and she is joined by her husband, Jeremy, and her parents, Walt and Melody. We are welcoming to Plano a new assistant principal at Shepton High School. Thanasi Ecoc Pentaras is joining us from Frisco ISD, and Thanasi is joined this evening by his wife Becca and son Emmett. A new assistant principal at Armstrong Middle School is Tara Clark. Tara has previously been a math teacher at Murphy Middle School, and she is joined this evening by her husband Matt and their daughter Lillian. Otto Middle School is welcoming a new assistant principal, Abby Hines Homer. Abby has most previously led the special ed department at Vines High School, and she is joined this evening by her husband Derek and their sons Carson and Brayson. New assistant principal at Schimmelpfennig Middle School is Ari Weinberg. Ari has previously served as the academic team leader at Haggard Middle School, and joining Ari tonight is his wife Tara and their daughters Addie and Kara. New assistant principal at Williams High School is Mona Abdelfetta. Mona is coming to Williams from Clark High School, where she has been a teacher and coach, and joining Mona this evening are her brothers Bassem, Hani, and her sister-in-law January. Our new assistant principal at Renner Middle School is Travis Ragsdale. Travis is coming to Renner from Murphy, where he was an athletic director. Joining Travis this evening are his wife, Stacy, and daughter, Avery, and sons, Peyton and Cohen. New assistant principal at Plano East Senior High is Roland Rios. Roland is coming to us from Carrollton Farmers Branch, where he was serving as an assistant principal. He is joined this evening by his wife Jordan, who is a proud PISD teacher, and their daughters Elise and Olivia. New assistant principal at McMillan High School is Brittany Drake. Brittany is coming to us from Mesquite, and her background is as a special education teacher. She is joined tonight by her mom, Trina, and sons and nephews, Omari, Colby, Abraham, and Alexander. Moving to join the Jasper JAG team, Kim Murphy is a new assistant principal at Jasper. Kim has previously been the 504 coordinator at Plano Senior High School, and Kim is joined by her husband Brian and her daughter Erin. Also joining the Jasper administration team is Brian McCord, and I know that's a familiar name and face. Brian has most recently served our district as a curriculum coordinator in secondary academics. He is joined by his wife Crystal and children Rianne, Riley, and William. We have two all-stars moving up from early childhood. The first I'd like to introduce is Elena Helms. Elena is the new assistant principal at Beverly and Houston Elementary. Elena has previously been one of our pre-K teachers, most recently at Hager Elementary. And Elena is joined by her husband Jason and their children Lincoln and Davis. Another early childhood teacher leader joining the elementary ranks is Heather Schmidt. Heather is our new assistant principal at Weatherford Elementary. She has previously been an instructional specialist at Beatty Early Childhood, and she is joined by her daughter Stella, her son Will, and her boyfriend Dave Hennessy.
An excited boyfriend.
Welcome to Texas. We're welcoming Susan Schlosser at Sagling Elementary. Susan is joining us from a move from Santa Fe South Schools in Oklahoma, where she was serving as an elementary principal, and she is joined by her husband, Alan. Lori Brooks is a new assistant principal at Huffman Elementary. Lori has most recently served as the, I think you've held almost every role, Lori, the instructional specialist, avid teacher, language arts and social studies at Haggard. Lori also previously taught in elementary, and she is joined by her son, Robert Dale. Our new assistant principal at Andrews Elementary is Emily Heckman. Emily is coming from Houston Elementary, where she was an instructional specialist. She is joined by her parents, her brother and sister-in-law. Did your grandparents make it? Yay. Oh, that's wonderful. And her grandparents. Thank you all for being with us. Our new assistant principal at Razor Elementary is Jigyasa Sethi. She is joined this evening. She is our new assistant principal at Razor. She is coming from Andrews, where she was an instructional specialist. She is joined by her husband, Thermindor, her children, Joss and Simran, and her mother-in-law, Kuldeep. In rounding out this wonderful group of new leaders, I'd like to introduce Molly Pond, who is the new assistant principal at Centennial Elementary. Molly has previously served the district as an instructional specialist at Mendenhall, and she is joined this evening by her husband, Robert Porter, and children Maddie, Connor, and Kristen.
Ms. Modisette won the prize for the most people to name tonight. I have one. In addition to our special education leadership team, Shelley Crowder is moving from behavior instructional specialist to our director of adult transition services. So we're excited about Shelley. And she's here with her husband Ben and daughter Ava, and her mother has joined us tonight.
I would like to introduce Celinda Anderson. She's the new Executive Director of School Improvement and Innovation. She comes from Wilson Middle School. She was the principal there, and she's joined by her son Connor, who is going to be a freshman at Clark this year.
So welcome to Plano ISD, and to give you your official greeting, you may now hear from your superintendent.
Some of you have heard from me before, and you're probably getting tired of hearing from me again. But welcome, administrators, to your new roles. We're so excited to welcome you either to the district or to your new administrative appointment. I know you will do great things for kids this year, and we have every confidence in your leadership abilities, or you wouldn't be sitting in those chairs. So welcome, and for the families who are here tonight, I'm going to thank you in advance for your sacrifice because of all the games and concerts and meetings and early mornings and late nights, because that's part of the job. And we know when we call upon your administrative spouses to do their jobs that we've taken them away from you, and we appreciate you giving us their time. And so thanks in advance for all of your sacrifice. We appreciate it very much. So thanks so much. I'm going to ask you to do something a little bit different this time. Typically at this point of the agenda, we tell you to leave. This evening, we're going to ask that you stay. We have one more section of the agenda we'd like this crowd to be in the room for. So if you wouldn't mind just sitting or standing tight for just a few moments, we'll get you on your way in just a moment.
We will now introduce the public comment session, and we will move to that portion of the agenda for topics relating to agenda items. For the public comment session, public comment cards are accepted from 6 to 7 p.m. Persons who wish to participate in this portion of the meeting complete the appropriate public comment card before the meeting begins and indicate the topic about which they wish to speak. Cards are not accepted after 7 p.m. and are not transferable to other parties or speakers. All cards were collected and given to Carla Oliver, Assistant Superintendent for Government, Community, and Planning Initiatives, or a representative of the Communications Department who will present the speakers. 30 minutes have been allotted to hear persons who desire to make comments to the board. 15 minutes will be allotted at this time for speakers wishing to address the board about a topic on the agenda. At the conclusion of the agenda, speakers who wish to address the board about non-agenda topics will be allotted 15 minutes to speak. No presentation shall exceed 3 minutes. If you are not finished speaking at the end of your 3 minutes, I will kindly interrupt you so that we can move to the next person. Delegations of more than 5 persons shall appoint 1 person to present their views before the board. Ms. Oliver, do we have any speakers for the public comment session regarding agenda topics?
We actually have one, but it's for a non-agenda topic.
Okay. Pursuant to board policies BED Legal, BED Local, and BED Exhibit, the board may place reasonable restraints on the number, length, and frequency of presentation so long as it does not unfairly discriminate among speakers based upon their viewpoint. The board is not authorized to discuss or act upon the public's comments or complaints if the subject is not on the agenda. So that will be the case this evening. When we hear that one comment, speaker, we cannot talk back with you about that. If a member of the public or the board inquires about a subject for which notice has not been given, the board may only make a statement of specific factual information, recite existing policy in response to the inquiry, or refer the person to a staff member for more information or assistance. If the subject of the public comment is already on the agenda for the meeting, the board may invite the speaker to stay until the board reaches that topic on the agenda. And finally, pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.074 and 551.0821, the board will not permit the presentation of personally identifiable information regarding a student and will not discuss the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, or hear a complaint or charge against an officer or employee. Should a speaker wish to address one of these issues, they must do so through the appropriate local grievance policies, F&G local, DGBA local, or GF local. So, remember all of that for the end of the meeting. Now we will address the consent agenda, which includes items that are of a routine or recurring nature grouped together under one action item. Board members, are there any requests to remove an item or items from the consent agenda for further discussion?
President Bender, I request that item H, agreement of the purchase of attended credits or recapture, be removed from the consent agenda.
Vice President Yorm Solomon has requested that item H be removed from the consent agenda. This item will be moved to another section of the agenda called Items for Discussion and Action. It will be item B4. And it will be discussed by the board at that time. There will be no discussion on this item at that time. Are there any other requests to remove items from the consent agenda for further discussion? Hearing none, we will proceed to vote on the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Trustees approve the consent agenda, removing item H.
Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a motion by Yoram and a second by Angela that the Board of Trustees approve the consent agenda, removing item H. We will now proceed to vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
And say aye.
Okay, all board members have voted and the motion passes 7-0. All right, we will now move to items for discussion and action. Plano ISD has two major ongoing district goals. Number one, to ensure the continued improvement in student learning. And number two, to ensure the efficient use of financial resources and budgeting. Our first 5 items for discussion and action this evening ensure governance and administrative support of these district goals. Item 1 is to consider the board approval of a resolution honoring the Plano Chamber of Commerce. And in recognition of our partnership with the Plano Chamber of Commerce, we would like to take this opportunity to recognize their well-deserved designation of the National Chamber of the Year, awarded by the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives. Competition for this honor is fierce, and it includes entries from the U.S. and Canada. This evening, we welcome Chamber Board Chair Jeff Beckley and President and CEO Jamie Jolly to our meeting. Would you both please approach the dais? Qualifying for Chamber of the Year is a rigorous process which involves competition and key performance criteria and a written application scored by peer chamber executives. Then the finalists continue to compete via an in-person interview by a panel of experienced chamber professionals. We are extremely proud of the Plano Chamber leadership, staff, and membership for their important work they do for our city and for their support of our staff and students here in Plano ISD. And I just want to say personally what a great partner they have been for Plano ISD. We so value your partnership. It's so strategic, and all of your chamber members and all the support they give to our school district. At this time, Secretary Nancy Humphrey will read the resolution into the record. After the board approves the resolution, Vice President Dr. Yoram Solomon will present it to the chamber leadership. Nancy?
Okay. I was like, I'm scrambling for the resolution, sorry. He's messing with me. Yeah. All right, I am so excited to get to read this resolution. Whereas the Plano Chamber of Commerce is committed to maximizing business development and economic growth of the community through advocacy, education, innovation, and collaboration. And whereas the Chamber leads the greater Plano community in promoting a strong and prosperous business environment, an educated and skilled workforce, and a sustainable regional
economy, and whereas these core values guide the Chamber's service to members and the community, and whereas established in 1946, the Plano Chamber represents over 1,200 businesses and community organizations in Plano and the surrounding area, and is vital to dedicated and a dedicated partner with the Plano ISD. And whereas the Plano Chamber of Commerce has been named Chamber of the Year, woohoo, by the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives, the ACCE, a national award that recognizes the Chamber's demonstrated organizational strength and impact on key community priorities such as education, transportation, business development, and quality of life. Therefore, be it resolved that as members of the Plano ISD Board of Trustees, we congratulate the Plano Chamber of Commerce for its distinguished award and offer heartfelt thank yous and the gratitude to the Chamber for the core values by which they stand firm, which are integrity, excellence, servant leadership, innovation, respect, and collaboration. Signed and sealed this 7th day of August 2018.
Thank you. So at this time, let me take a motion. May I have a motion to approve?
I do. I so move. I, Jerry Chambers, move that the Board of Trustees approve the resolution honoring the Plano Chamber of Commerce.
And do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Jerry Chambers and a second by Yoram Solomon that the Board of Trustees approves the resolution honoring the Plano Chamber of Commerce. Is there any discussion? We will now proceed to vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. We're going to recognize you.
He does all the hard work, so. A few comments, if you don't mind.
That's fine.
Yes. Well, thank you, Superintendent, and thank you, Board of Trustees, and thank you all that are in the audience today. We didn't realize we had such a big fan base, but thank you for the special recognition for the 2018 Chamber of the Year. We are so fortunate, as you mentioned, Missy, to have a partner in the District of Excellence. Through the work of this school board, through our district administrators, through the thousands of educators in our district, you all are helping educate the next generation of responsible citizens that will form a workforce that will be energetic, enthusiastic, and in high demand. We all know that the work we do has much greater impact when we work together. We thank you for your partnership, your valuable partnership, and thank you again for this recognition.
And just real quick, sorry, but I also just want to thank a few of our special attendees at tonight's school board meeting. So those that are representing the chamber, if you will all please stand and remain standing. So you may recognize a few familiar faces in our group this evening, and although they are wildly crazy and passionate about their Chamber of Commerce, I must be honest, that's not why they're here. All of these amazing people have something in common. All that are standing are previous recipients of the prestigious Citizen of the Year Award. It is my honor, Missy Bender, as a friend and a colleague, it is my pleasure to announce that you have been selected by this amazing group to be honored as our 2018 Citizen of the Year. I know this is out of order, but please step down just a moment. For those of you in attendance, first of all, you have an amazing leader in your school board president. She has been chosen by community leaders that include a senator, a sitting Congress member, and several of those that are here today that have led our community. This award recognizes an outstanding Plano citizen for their personal contributions over a period of years that have contributed to the welfare and advancement of Plano. It is our top recognition for citizens in the city of Plano, and we just appreciate the work you do, not just for Plano, but across the state of Texas. She loves her focus on education. She does an amazing job and represents us all well, and we will recognize her at the Best of Plano on Thursday, November 1st. And I'm so sneaky, so sorry.
She's been home all day. She's not even out of town.
That's funny.
Yeah, you did. Your Okay. That was
I think the word you're looking for is anyway.
Okay. Moving on. All right.
Now the fun stuff.
Well, Chamber, thank you so much for being here this evening. Congratulations on your Best Chamber in the Universe Award, because we truly believe that you are deserving of first place in everything you do. So I know that your support has meant a lot to me as a first-year superintendent, and I know that the partnership that we have will benefit the whole entire community. So thank you so much, and truly even more, there are very few real surprises in life. And I think we got one tonight. So thank you for that on behalf of Missy and her award. So couldn't be a better way to start the year. So thanks to you and congratulations, Missy. And everyone got to witness the surprise. Wasn't that worth staying for?
By the way, I think we should also recognize Jamie. Jamie received a couple of recognitions this year too.
And I should say I was educated in public schools, and I just appreciate so much what you all are doing to educate the next workforce. It's very important. So
Thanks, Jamie. Thank you. Okay, I think at this time, if you were recognized previously, you're welcome to exit.
Yes, you have to stay. And there will be photos in the foyer for administrators.
Told you it's going to be a long meeting.
That was fun. Are we taking a picture with the chamber? I guess not. Now I'm all done.
That's okay.
continue with our agenda, and the board will consider approval of the proposed changes to the board operating protocol. The amendments to board operating protocol that are proposed align protocol with board practice and policy. Can we close that back door, please? Can we close the back door? Thank you. On pages 21 through 22, the reference to BDA regulation is added, and the date that the superintendent should be notified by any board member who seeks to be elected as an officer is clarified. On page 23, the list of standing liaison roles for the board is updated with the deletion of the board audit committee, which is actually a subcommittee of the board, and the deletion of the downtown TIF board. 2 additional committee liaison positions are being recommended, one for the North Texas Commission and one for the Richardson Chamber of Commerce. I don't want a motion yet. So the proposed addition is for 2 new organizations. The Richardson Chamber of Commerce, which we've not been a member of for a few years, but we'd like to become a member again, so we're looking to establish a liaison relationship with that. And the other one for consideration is North Texas Commission, which serves as like a regional chamber of commerce. And this is a relationship that is new to us. It requires membership also. There are not other school districts that are part of that organization yet, but we inquired with the former CEO to see if this would be a relationship, is this something that we should do? She felt like they have strong advocacy. Support, and if we were to become a member, they haven't actively sought out school districts, but if we were to become a member, she felt like they would be able to broaden that to invite others as well. So those are the 2 for your consideration. They're on this list, so if you want them to remain on the list, then make the motion as it's presented. If you don't, then modify the motion. Okay? So, do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Trustees approves the amendments to the board operating protocols as presented.
All right.
I second.
We have a second. All right, we have a motion by Nancy Humphrey and a second by Yoram Solomon that the Board of Trustees approve the amendments to the board operating protocol as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will now proceed to vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And the board passes this motion unanimously, 7-0. All right, now, having done that, we now have a complete list that includes those 2 items where we traditionally assign relationships between community organizations and trustees to serve in relation to those organizations. These appointments for the 2018-19 school year are presented as attached and have been compiled based upon, as much as I could do it, your preferences and experience. So, given that, do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Trustees approve the appointment of Board of Trustees liaisons to committees as presented for the 2018-2019 school year.
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Nancy Humphrey and a second by Yoram Solomon that the Board of Trustees approve the appointment of Board of Trustee liaisons to committees as presented for the 2018-19 school year. Is there any discussion? We will now proceed to vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Next item is where we will consider approval of the endorsement of a candidate to fill the Region 10, Position A and Position D on the Texas Association of School Boards Board of Directors. The board is invited to endorse a candidate for these 2 positions representing Region 10 with the Texas Association of School Boards. If a majority of the active members of this region endorses a candidate, that individual will be elected to the TASB board. If at least 25% but not a majority endorse the candidate, the individual will be included on the official ballot at the TASB Delegate Assembly. The information for candidates nominated for Region 10 positions A and D have been provided to the board. Additional information was provided regarding candidates who contacted the Board of Superintendents seeking endorsement. So in your materials, you can see that there are, I think, maybe 6 individuals for position D, and I think there's 1 individual for position A. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Trustees approves the endorsement of Debbie Gillespie to fill Region 10, Position A, and Kelly Juergens to fill Region 10, Position D on the Texas Association of School Boards, TASB, Board of Directors.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All right, so I have a motion by Nancy Humphrey and a second by Yoram Solomon that the Board of Trustees approve the endorsement of Debbie Gillespie to fill Region 10, Position A, and Kelly Juergens to fill Region 10, Position D on the Texas Association of School Boards Board of Directors. Is there any discussion?
I'd just like to ask the rationale for Kelly, and
Sure.
I'd like some more background than what we received.
Okay, that's fine. I've known Mr. Juergens for, I don't know, many, many years, 20 years maybe. And I know him to be a very involved person in his community. He's been on the school board, I want to say, I don't know all the facts, 8 years, 5 years as their president. He's in Plano ISD, which is an up-and-coming, fast-growth district, not too dissimilar from the way Plano was in the 90s. And I've had conversations with him recently to talk about his desire to run. And he's in it for the long haul. He's committed. He understands school finance. He understands advocacy for public education and has very similar views as this board. And he has very good connections in Austin, I'll just say. And it's kind of funny, you think Salina, but you know, probably 30 years ago, people probably said Plano. So I can recommend him wholeheartedly. I know him quite well, and I know his family, and he's committed to being on the school board for the long haul. So I know he will serve his term well on TASB, and I bet would consider a second term or more terms on the TASB Board of Directors if he were given that opportunity. And then as far as Debbie Gillespie, I think we on this board all know Debbie and her commitment to public education and her service on the Frisco ISD board. So I wholeheartedly recommend both individuals.
I don't think we can go wrong. I mean, these are all fine people. And it's what happens after this is that these endorsements are collected, and it's very rare that anybody ever gets a majority. So then it goes to a committee. The committee interviews everybody. They make a recommendation. The recommendation goes to the assembly. And if somebody wants to challenge the recommendation, they advocate at that time, and then a vote is taken. So if, you know, any of these candidates, if they're not the named candidate, doesn't mean that they're out of the running. So
that's true. You're right. I agree. There's other people on the list that I know, and they're all good candidates.
they're all fine, you know, candidates. So any other discussion? All right, we will now proceed to vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously, 7-0. All right. We will now consider board approval of the delegate and alternate delegate to the 2018 Texas Association of School Boards Delegate Assembly. This is a once-a-year opportunity for Texas school boards to determine the leadership, advocacy agenda, and the overall direction of the organization. Delegate Assembly is held in conjunction with the TASB Convention. 2018 Delegate Assembly is scheduled for Saturday, September 29, 2018 in Austin. Each active member board may appoint one delegate and one alternate to represent their district's interests during the assembly. In agenda item A3, the board approved the Board of Trustee liaisons to committees for the 18-19 school year, whereby Dr. Yoram Solomon was named the TASB delegate and David Stolley was named the TASB delegate alternate. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Trustees approves Yorm and David as an official Plano ISD School District voting delegate to the 2018 TASB Delegate Assembly in Austin, Texas on September 29th, 2018, and approves David Stolley as an alternate delegate.
All right. Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a motion by Angela Powell and a second by Nancy Humphrey that the Board of Trustees approve Dr. Yoram Solomon as an official Plano ISD Independent School District voting delegate to the 2018 TASB Delegate Assembly in Austin, Texas on September 29, 2018, and approves David Stolley as an alternate delegate. Any other discussion? Okay, we will now vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. All right, motion passes unanimously, 7-0. All right. Thanks, guys. The next 3 agenda items for discussion and action support the district's goal to ensure the efficient use of financial resources and budgeting. The first item related to that is considering board approval of Chapter 21 contract recommendations. Dr. Brockman, Assistant Superintendent for Employee Services, will introduce the discussion of the Chapter 21 contract recommendations. Dr. Brockman.
Thank you. Administration recommends the approval of the single Chapter 21 contract attached in Board Book.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Trustees, I can't talk, acts on the recommendation of the superintendent to approve Chapter 21 contracts as described for the employees listed in the board packet.
Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a motion by Nancy Humphrey, a second by Yoram Solomon, that the Board of Trustees acts on the recommendation of the superintendent to approve Chapter 21 contracts as described for the employees listed. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will now proceed to vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Next item is where the board will consider the approval of alternate appraisers. Again, Dr. Brockman, Assistant Superintendent for Employee Services, will introduce the discussion of the approval of alternate appraisers. Dr. Brockman.
Thank you. Administration recommends the approval of Melissa Cobb, Ton King, and Clint Poole as alternate appraisers for teacher appraisal.
Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Trustees approves alternate appraisers.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Angela Powell, a second by Jerry Chambers, that the Board of Trustees approves alternate appraisers. Is there any discussion? We will now proceed to vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Third item relates to board approval of all matters incident and related to the issuance and sale of Plano ISD unlimited tax school building bonds, Series 2018, including the adoption of an order authorizing the issuance of such bonds, establishing parameters for the sale and issuance of such bonds, and delegating certain matters to authorized officials of the district. Randy McDowell, Assistant Superintendent for Business Services, will introduce the discussion of the issuance and sale of Plano ISD unlimited tax school building bonds. Mr. McDowell.
Thank you, President Bender, members of the board. So tonight we do have for your consideration a 2018 bond sale sizing. We do have a couple of our consultants in the room as well. We have Kristen Savant, who is our bond attorney, and she's with Norton Rose and Fulbright. And we also have Nick Boulage, who's our financial advisor, and he's with Hilltop Securities. And so if you have any hard questions, I'll divert those to the back. But included in your board packet is the bond parameters order that was prepared by Bond Counsel. So we have a presentation that will hit some of the highlights of that bond order. Okay, so just a little background to lead into this. The 2016 bond election was passed on May 7th of 2016. The bond authorization was $481 million. We do have some previous issues on this bond authorization, And so we issued just under $284 million in August of 2016, and that was a rate of 2.24%. That was broken down, you can see that, between facilities, school buses, and technology. And the amortization or the financing of those was done accordingly. The facilities were amortized over 20 years, school buses 10 years, and technology over 5 years. And again, you can see the dollar amounts. The second issue was a year later in August of 2017, and that was just over $120 million issue. Again, it was for facilities, school buses, and technology with the same amortization schedule, and those bonds were issued with a true interest cost of 1.58%. And I think Plano hit the market on the right day on that one. The market has changed just a little bit. So the total issue to date out of the $481 million is just over $404 million. So that leaves just under $77 million to be issued. Our financial advisor has recommended that we structure that over a 3-year period. Of that remaining, $41.8 million is technology and $35.12 is funding for a possible new elementary school if that's needed. Also elementary growth and any property, future property needs of the district. The INS tax rate for the last 2 fiscal years has remained at 26.9 cents. And that has been the goal, is to try to continue that rate at 26.9 and structure the bonds accordingly. The bond rates have increased slightly. We do expect a rate that will be in the low 3% range. We do have a graph here from the bond buyer guide, or the bond buyer index. I believe you saw this last year as well. You can see how it bottomed out in the late 2016, 2017. It has inched up a little bit, and the current index is about 3.9% at the end of July. Of course, Plano carries a very strong bond rating and is very attractive in the market, and so we do expect to do well on this bond issue. The goals on this bond issue are to maintain the INS tax rate of 26.9 cents, and so we did wait until we got certified values, and then our financial advisors looked at how much we could issue and how we could structure that to maintain that 26.9 cent INS rate. They're recommending that we issue $14,050,000. All of that is for technology, and all of that will be amortized over 5 years. The majority of that principal will be in the first 3 years, so that will be a quick payout on that $14 million. That leaves in future years, and of course these are subject to change, but in 2019 we're estimating just over $13 million that would be issued, and then the remaining 14.75. The remaining amount, the other $35 million, would be held until needed for an additional elementary and future district needs. So in the parameters order that's in your packet, it does state that the aggregate original principal amount of the bonds shall not exceed $14,050,000. I think the board is familiar with the parameters order, and so that gives the administration, the superintendent, chief financial officer, and executive director of finance the authority to go out and go through the process that we have to go through, to work with bond rating agencies, to work with TEA on a permanent school fund guarantee, and then go to market and actually issue those bonds. And we would come back to the board with a report of how we did in the market, how they were sold at a later date. The parameters order also states that the true interest cost of the bonds cannot exceed 3.5%, and the final maturity of the bonds shall not exceed February 15th of 2023. So this order would be good for 180 days. So again, that's authorizing the administration to go out within the next 30 days, 180 days, and if we can meet those, the issuance, the true interest cost, and the maturity, then we have the authority to go ahead and issue those, just because we have to be ready to pull the trigger on those on a given day. Are there any questions that you have? I know you're familiar with this process for myself or for our experts that are in the room.
I don't have a question, but I just have a comment, and I want to just thank our advisors, and thank you, Randy, for the way that this bond passed in 2016 has been managed. If you told any private entity that they could borrow $300 million and pay 2.24% or 1.58%, they would be lining up at the door. So the fact that we're paying a point and a half on $120 million worth of debt is incredible. And so that goes to our advisors who are helping us time the market at the right time. It goes to you for advising on when these issues, and with our advisors on when these issues should be done. So I just want to say thank y'all for the way that the advice that you're giving us in managing these funds.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Trustees approves the parameters order authorizing the issuance and sale of Plano Independent School District Unlimited School Building Bonds Series 2018.
Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a motion by Jerry Chambers, a second by Norm Solomon, that the Board of Trustees approves the parameters order authorizing the issuance and sale of Plano Independent School District Unlimited School Building Bonds Series 2018. Is there any discussion? We will now vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously, 7-0. All right, the last item for discussion and action is the item that we pulled from consent agenda for separate consideration. Vice President Norm Solomon requested that item H be removed from consent agenda, which it was, and is now item B4 on items for discussion and action. Randy McDowell, will you please introduce the discussion of the agreement for the purchase of attendance credits and recapture for the 2018-19 school year?
Yes, I will. So in your packet is the agreement with TEA, the purchase of attendance credits. We also call that option 3. And so there's 5 ways that a school district can equalize well. Plano ISD went to its voters in 1993, and the voters of Plano approved option 3 is the wealth equalization that Plano could enter into. And so that is the purchase of students directly from the state. And so that's however many weighted ADA or basically fictitious students we have to buy from the state in order to equalize our wealth. And so that's what we call recapture. We have to pay recapture in 2 different levels. We have to pay that in Tier 1. The equalized wealth level in that tier is $514,000. And on TEA's estimate for this year, they have us at $782,000 wealth per weighted ADA. And so we're well above the 514, and so we do have to pay recapture at that level. And then also, as you know, there's no recapture on the 6 pennies from $1 to $1.06, but we do have a $1.17 tax rate. And so on the 11 pennies from $1.06 to $1.17, we pay more recapture even than on the Tier 1 pennies, because the equalized wealth level is $319,500. So the process is that the district has to advertise in the paper a budget and proposed tax rate. We have a hearing on that. We adopt the budget in June. Once we get certified values, then we have to come back and adopt a tax rate. However, if you're a Chapter 41 district, prior to that, you do have to go ahead and approve a contract, either under option 3 or option 4, to purchase attendance credits, in our case from the state. And once we send that agreement into the state, then we get a letter back from the Commissioner of Education that then allows us to set our tax rate. And until they receive the agreement, we are on hold on setting our tax rate. And so in your packet is the agreement where we would buy the attendance credits or pay recapture to the state. That amount in the budget was estimated at just under $208 million this year. I don't think it's any secret that number has doubled over the last 2 years. In 16-17, it was in the $104, $105 million range. This past year, about $154 million, and this coming year, 18-19 that we're going into, it's projected to be $208 million. And so that's what the item is.
So effectively, this is how we pay what we owe in recapture to the state.
That's correct.
And it just has this name of attendance credits.
That's exactly
associated with it. So it doubled in 2 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And if we don't approve this, what is the consequence?
Yes, Yes, so there are provisions in Chapter 41 of the Education Code to where if a school district, one is, first of all, if we don't approve the agreement by September 1, then we don't get the early agreement credit. And for Plano ISD, that's just under $4 million that we would not receive. So we wouldn't get the early agreement credit. Secondly is, then it would begin a process where it would be up to the Commissioner of Education's discretion on how he equalized Plano ISD's well. If you're familiar with the story from Houston ISD, I believe that was last year. Now theirs was a little bit different because it was their first year being Chapter 41, and so their voters had to approve an equalized wealth option. Whenever that went to the voters did not approve that, and so it was very much the same process of if we don't approve this, if Plano ISD doesn't approve this, that then the commissioner comes in and begins detaching property. And that process, they start with your highest property values, and they move that to other adjoining districts until they get your property wealth down to a level that you're not property wealthy anymore, and so you wouldn't have recapture. And so that would be the process. If this was not approved, we wouldn't receive the credits. Also, I would assume that the commissioner would come in and begin a process of detaching property.
So essentially, the state is saying, either sign this document, agree to this document, or I'm just going to go ahead and take your property.
With
I think I saw that in the guidelines.
With a penalty.
Yeah.
With a penalty.
With the
You know,
$4 million
and
penalty.
one point, just to, some people don't realize Recapture's other name is Robin Hood. I'm not sure if we said that, but some people know it as Robin Hood.
So, Dr. Solomon, you asked to remove this from the agenda. Do you want to speak to?
Do you want to do a motion first, or?
Yeah. Why don't you lay out why you
Okay.
wanted to pull it first,
So
and then
here's
I'll ask
why.
for a motion.
Fair enough. I'm sure that the voters in 1993, when they voted this, they didn't know what to expect this year. The item, just for clarification, the item on the agenda is requesting a $208 million payment. Now, every agenda item that we have has these 5 little boxes here where we tie this to some of our district goals, whether they're ensuring continued improvement of student learning, efficient use of resources, initiatives of commitment to equity, and all of those initiatives and goals. This item has no box checked, so there's zero benefit to our district, yet we're going to be paying $208 million. In the last couple of days, I saw a Facebook discussion that said, PISD, this is what it said there, has raised property taxes by 84%. We need to focus on PISD and why they need to reduce their property tax collection. So I kind of looked at the numbers from the previous board meeting. We for the school year 2014-15, we collected $440 million. For this coming school year, we expect to collect 618. We're going from 440 to 618. We don't need this, right? We don't need this for our own M&O, for our own budget. However, we don't get this because in the 2014-15 school year, we paid $47 million in recapture. For the next school year, we expect to pay $208 million. That's what you're asking us to approve. I looked at the difference between these numbers. This difference doesn't even help us pay the minimum 2% pay increase to our teachers and administrators just to be competitive. That doesn't cover the 2%. Recapture this coming school year represents 30% of our budget. 30% of what we collect in taxes, and I'm not sure that people realize that. 30% of what we collect in taxes, we're going to send for the state, and there are 0 boxes for us in it. I remember a few meetings ago, Randy, you showed us something about the cumulative deficit that we're going to start incurring because of this. And if I remember correctly, the school year was 2020, 2021, or 21-22. But for one of those, we will have a $96 million cumulative deficit. $96 million. And now, we all wish that our property values stop rising, right? so that we don't keep on paying more and more property taxes. If they stop rising, we have another $40 million in cumulative deficit, right?
Yes, sir.
So really, I mean, with this leads to only one question that Missy, you asked before. Can we just not approve this agreement? But you just described it. You just told us that if we do that, they start detaching properties. If we don't do that by September 1st, there is a $4 million penalty. It's not really an option that we have. And I really think that people need to understand that this is not something that we get. We don't even get the 2% that we're paying our teachers, right?
That's correct.
And we don't have any option. We have to approve it today or they start detaching properties
We have to approve it by September 1.
by September 1st.
Okay. So thank you for that explanation of the options and the consequences. Do I have a motion?
Not from me.
I'll be the Debbie Downer. I move that the Board of Trustees approves the agreement for the purchase of attendance credits for the 2018-2019 school year reluctantly.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
I have a motion by Nancy Humphrey, a second by Tammy Richards, that the Board of Trustees approves the agreement for the purchase of attendance credits for the 2018-19 school year. Is there any discussion?
Yeah. So I would say welcome to the club if you're tired of the conversation about recapture, but this has been, I've been talking about this for 7 years, and I've been warning that this is coming for 7 years. And I've had conversations with sitting elected officials who represent us in Austin who basically told me, I'm not going to do anything about it, I can't do anything about it, and that's ridiculous. And so it is fair game to ask people who are running for office to represent the people of this school district, what their position is on this, what they intend to do, because we cannot live with this. Not one more year, not one more day. And it is going to bankrupt the education of this state if you continue to take from districts like us and have us supplement the funding of education around the state. You know, Yoram said we don't need the additional tax dollars that we're collecting. Yeah, we do need some of those tax dollars here. Yes, we could give some of those tax dollars back to our taxpayers, but we have budget needs, and we have needs of the students in this school district that need to be met that we cannot meet because we have to pay $208 million to the state of Texas for them to redistribute to the state, to the rest of the state. In the reddest of the red states in this state, and the reddest of the red counties in the state, I cannot believe that we have not had people going down to Austin and just beating up anybody they could just to get rid of this recapture. It's unbelievable. Now, it took us 3 minutes to make a motion, and this is truly a gun to your head motion. You can either agree to pay them $208 million, or you're going to wake up tomorrow morning with a horse head in the bed. And that's basically what they're doing. This is movie Godfather-esque type of things, where if you don't agree to pay them $208 million, you're just going to start taking properties away from you until they feel like they've gotten $208 million worth. And they're going to charge you $4 million for that, the pleasure of that. So this fight is not a fight that this board is making tonight. This fight is a fight that has to be made in Austin. And we've got to have people who are going to go down there and fight for us.
Well, David, you state your point very well, and I think this board has for many years tried to educate our taxpayers what they're paying. And so we have a movement called taxparency, and that's to educate people to understand where their taxes are going. And in the previous 2 legislative sessions, we've tried to get taxparency bills approved, and in this last session we were very close to getting that, where taxpayers would see on their tax statement how much of their money that they're paying to Plano ISD truly doesn't stay in Plano ISD. And I think if we could get that message out to our taxpayers, which takes an act of legislation to pass that, to get it on your tax statement, but if people knew what was going on, I think we would have more action in Austin. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said we need to vet our candidates who are currently running and will be elected in November in an election. We need to get them to answer how they're going to fix this. Because I think some candidates are talking about a consumption tax. And I'm not certain that that would be a way to go, but there needs to be a solution to school finance in this next legislative session, or it's going to blow the cap. I think school districts are already not able to meet their budgets, and if we're going into a deficit position, and in
96 million.
96 million. In
Plus 40 if
2021,
it
plus
levels up.
40 when the bubble pops. You know, if we're wealthy, then I feel bad for the districts who don't have the same tax base that we have.
Let me just clarify something you said, that when I said that we don't need this, we do need to grow, and we do need to pay the 2% pay increases, or God forbid 3%, because that's what others are doing. What we don't need is, we don't need 50% over 4 years. We collected more than 50% in 4 years. We don't need that. But here's the thing, nobody needs that. The cost of education here or anywhere in the state should not have gone up by 50% in 4 years. So this money is not going to education.
So let's go to that next step. Where is it going? So if we're sending, you know, the increase cost to us is about 50 million
a year.
And next year, after this one, Randy, will it be another 50, do you estimate?
Yes, approximately, yes.
Okay. So where is that going? I don't want people to think that we don't care about educating other children in Texas that need education. I don't think we're trying to send that message. Because I'll just speak for myself. I don't mind, you know, helping others to a degree. But there's a partner in this, and that partner is called the state of Texas. So what is happening with the money that we're spending, that extra 50 million a year, or this year is going to be 208 million, it's allowing the state to reduce its contribution to education. We're partners. We both put money into this pie. And what's happened is they're counting on you to put in more so they can put in less. We both used to put in 50%, and they're now putting in 38% so that you can put in more. And when you put in the more, they take that delta and they're able to use it elsewhere to satisfy other state budget obligations. What are those? Well, I could tell you. They're not related to education. They're related to other things that they need to satisfy because they don't have another revenue stream. So they're using you as that revenue stream. So until you get mad enough about that and start asking hard questions and holding people accountable for the decisions, they're the ones who can affect the property tax bill. If they will put in their fair share, we don't need to collect because they don't need the recapture from us to the same degree. I don't know if recapture will ever go away entirely. I just don't know. They need that money. They count on that money in the state budget. So the whole story is the one that we've been trying to tell. It's very complicated. We're going to do our best to try to simplify it as much as possible and get the word out. We're having an impact on that. We're hearing conversations in the Texas School Finance Commission work. They're having these conversations, but the rubber will hit the road when the legislative session begins in January. and they're going to have to find new money in order to increase their contributions so we can decrease ours and they can put in their fair share. So.
And just to emphasize the consequence, in the 2021 school year, when we have a $96 million deficit, we're going to have to start taking loans just to bridge the cash flow. If property values level off, we're probably going to have to take loans just to make payday. That's where we are.
And potentially start cutting programs. That could be a conversation we have in the future.
And this is all while we collect taxes 50% more than we did 4 years ago.
All right. Any other discussion? All right, we will now proceed to vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Can we vote on the duress? Or at least note that we voted under duress?
Motion passes unanimously with duress. 7-0. All right, that concludes the items for discussion and action. Our next section is a report. And our report this evening supports the district's goal to ensure continued improvement in student learning. And our presenters this evening will be Susan Modisette and Dr. Katrina Hasley, speaking to us about summer learning in Plano ISD.
Thank you, President Bender. I'd like to welcome Matt Sipes to the podium. Matt is our Director of Expanded Learning Pathways, which means that he leads our initiatives in eSchool, in blended learning, in night school, and this evening he's going to share summer school learning. When Matt finishes, I'll turn it over to Dr. Hasley, who will share some information on learning by our adults in the district. So Matt, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Trustees. So I have the pleasure of sharing what our summer learning programs look like. And when I talk about our summer learning programs, I really do believe that they are a perfect example of our district motto, Teamwork for Excellence, if you just consider all of the work and the effort and the planning that goes in behind it. And this first slide, just kind of high-level summary of what this past summer looked like. We served over 10,000, close to 10,400 students, and that's in our summer school programs and eSchool combined. Our eSchool enrollment is probably, we haven't totally run all of the numbers, but it looks like it'll probably be one of the higher enrollments in our history. And so we're excited about that. Our summer school office staff and our eSchool office staff have done an amazing job with registering students and meeting their needs in that way. We also graduated 36 seniors this summer, and so that's something to celebrate for sure. 44% of our summer school students are economically disadvantaged, and so the chance to serve those and meet those needs, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. HR is a huge part of what we do in summer school. We employ over 1,000 employees. We work very closely with facilities and all the construction and the renovation that is going on and trying to find centralized locations. And so 12 programs across 21 campuses. Transportation does an amazing job with planning routes. You can see the amount of routes that we use for not just for our traditional routes, but our special needs routes as well. And then FANS, we serve about 3,400 meals a day, and that's at PAL, breakfast and lunch, and then Memorial and Bowman at our PEP and sales site, and then of course our summer meals at Meadows. And so it really is a group effort, not listed on this slide, but is the work that student records and our analysts do in registering with teams, and also the work of academic services with our curriculum and making sure that our kids have access to content that they need. We do have programs that focus on enrichment and programs that focus on acceleration or remediation. Our enrichment programs really give students a choice, really focus on critical thinking, creativity and problem solving. And for our ELL students, we really want to provide opportunities for language development. And then our accelerated instruction programs, meet students where they are at academically and provide instruction for growth based on their needs academically. And then this last slide is just an overview of our programs and the programs designated by age. I do want to discuss our PAL program, Plano Academy of Learning. This is our remedial program for our elementary students. We did add a fourth site, and we waived tuition for our students who are in our free and reduced lunch program. And we saw an enrollment of 560 students. And so that's something to celebrate. And so we think there's a correlation there, obviously. It is something to celebrate in the increase. And so that's just our list of programming across the district. So that was quick, but any questions?
I have a question. Just curious, are all students who want to participate able to participate in terms of, are there any limitations for sizing or anything? If you sign up for SIGs, every kid that wants to do SIGs is able to do it?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And we meet needs for students that have special needs. If they're at a non-special ed type program, then we meet their needs in that way as well.
Do we have any feedback or any response for our you said 44% special low socioeconomic? Are we able to meet the needs of all of our low socioeconomic kids, and what challenges do you see in that area?
So as part of our PAL initiative that we added the foresight, we did survey our elementary campuses, and we're in the process of going through that data, and that'll be part of our planning process for next year, and how can we better meet those needs if we do need to meet them. But that is something that we're evaluating based on surveys from elementary schools.
Thank you.
Which campuses did you serve?
We served, where were we at location-wise? For PAL, we were at, I just went blank. We were at Mendenhall, Barron, Rosehager, and Thomas.
Were they full-day programs?
They were half-day.
Was transportation provided?
Yes, from their home campus, and in certain cases we bused from their transfer campus.
But not from their homes?
No, it was, yeah.
What's the, do you know?
There are some high-need areas that we do bus from, apartments and things like that. Some neighborhoods that we do bus directly from.
Mm-hmm. What about like the Haverwood neighborhoods?
Mm-hmm. We do have some bus stops over by Haverwood, Douglas Apartments.
Do you have a breakdown, or do you know the number of students that we're doing enrichment programs versus the accelerated instruction? I'm just curious if we have a lot of students taking advantage of time to get ahead. So
SIGs, we had about 1,800. That's an enrichment program. PEP, and these numbers include SAIL as well, which is our program for our students, our ELL bilingual students who need language development. That was around 1,650. And then pre-KK, which is our kindergarten prep bilingual and students that need kindergarten prep, that was about 1,200. Middle school, to give you a comparison of what we did more of, I'd have to really just look at the numbers, but we served about, some areas we were up, some areas we were down from last year.
Susan, is the kindergarten prep program, is that what we put in place like 3 or 4 years ago? Okay. And how many did you say you had in that?
1,200.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. We didn't lose a one of them.
That's even better.
Thank goodness. And what was that offered at the same 4 campuses?
Yes. We had, not as the PAL, we offered that was at Jackson. I should have brought that list with me, I apologize. Some of the sites were the same as last year, but I can get that information.
And was that also half-day?
Yes. No, pre-KK is full day.
Okay. And for the PAL sites where they were half-day, did they have PSAR opportunities to stay?
If the Shepherd kids, which is where PAL was, which is where PSAR was, they could attend PSAR, but we don't bus from PAL to PSAR. It'll be something that we look at.
Has that pre-K program grown in numbers over
This year was actually down 120 students.
Okay. So it grew pretty quickly then
Mhm.
from first few years and then sort of has leveled out.
Sometimes that could be, David, a function of the number of births for a particular time.
Yeah, I was really more thinking in terms of, I mean, is this the norm? Are we going to have about 1,200? I mean, that's a good sized program for what, when we talked about it initially, I don't know that we thought we'd get that many kids. So.
Do all 1,200 of those kids qualify for free and reduced lunch? Is that how they get in that program?
They have, yeah, it's either a language need or socioeconomic.
Okay. Do you know what the split is between
I
the
do
two?
not. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Well, I would like to share a little bit of the adult learning that happened this summer. We were talking about student learning, and we also, it's a prime time for our instructional staff to do a lot of learning over the summer. And this really highlights the level of commitment, both from those who seek out the opportunities to learn, as well as those who develop the opportunities and deliver those. Thanks. So over the summer, we had 731 of our instructional staff enrolled in online courses, and this is according to our digital My Learning Plan digital system. And these topics range from instructional strategies to classroom management to all kinds of other things about content-related instruction. So we thought that was a great number. And another big number is over 22,000 hours of in-person training were logged into our digital learning plan. These are hours that teachers and instructional assistants spent in class learning, and they logged that in on their portfolios. So the next few slides, I would like to just share a little bit about some of those opportunities that they took advantage of for the in-person learning. Our technology department does a great job every summer of offering lots of classes. You can see there are 5 different topics here, but they were divided into 44 classes. Lots of teachers participated in these. You can see a big one was Google Apps classes, and also the Chromebooks had a lot of participants. Also, a returning feature is ETSI, which is our Education Technology Success Initiative, and Technology Department again partners with others to do a terrific job of offering all of these topics. They're listed there, and you can see the participants that took advantage of that. And all of these sessions are opportunities that teachers come to by choice. So they're not required to do this, which also speaks highly of our staff. As you'll recall, last year, part of our special education focus was on behavioral support and really building capacity in those teachers and instructional assistants who work directly with the students with the most behavioral needs. So we did, our staff did design the Summer Academy in 2 tiers. Tier 1 for the foundational level for teachers who were less experienced and needed more of the foundational support, and then Tier 2 for those who are more experienced in the classrooms. One was 5 days, one was 3. We had required all of our teachers and instructional assistants who work in self-contained classrooms, both centralized and campus-based, to attend this. We had 75% attended during the summer, and so then we had to make up the last couple of days for those who were not able to come during the summer. So we're very pleased with that percentage and got a lot of great reviews on the classes. Our elementary academics department works every summer with other departments in the district to provide our Summer Elementary Academy. We have a lot of teachers, pre-K through 5, and administrators who come and attend these sessions. I listed a lot of the focus areas, but there are lots of choices here for teachers to really seek out areas where they want to grow from their professional development. We also, as you know, are a district with AVID campuses. We have 22 of our secondary campuses and 24 elementary campuses using the AVID program. Now we even have PISD staff members who are trained AVID staff developers, so that enables us to provide our own AVID district path training in the district. and that is a great support to our campuses. We also send our newer campuses to the Avid Summer Institute. This year we were able to send teams from the 3 new elementary campuses we added, as well as the new Avid Excel Middle School campuses, and a few other smaller teams from secondary schools. A couple of other opportunities that teachers had were the Team Leader Academy, and this is a long-standing tradition. It's a great 5-day session that teachers are nominated by their principals to attend. They seek out teacher leaders who really want to grow in their leadership areas, and we had 105 attend the Team Leader Academy this year. It is designed and delivered by seasoned team leaders and district level directors. We also had students and a teacher who attended the UT Southwestern Summer Internship. This was an 8-week internship that they committed to, and it included authentic research projects in labs, researching things such as cancer drug development and kidney functioning. So that reminds me of our science fair winners we had up here not long ago. And then just a few others. We highlight our secondary academics Plano Writing Leadership Academy, which is for our secondary ELA teachers, and also our collaborative team planning, which was developed by secondary academics to help collaborative teams from team leaders from secondary campuses had the option to send a team to go back and provide this training on their campus. We also had Plano Kadai teacher training opportunity where 8 campuses were represented with music teachers attending that training. I did want to highlight also our curriculum writing preparation. You know, Plano is known for its strong curriculum and instructional resources, but curriculum only stays strong when it is reviewed and monitored and edited regularly. And our curriculum writing is done by master teachers who teach the content area, along with coordinators and specialists who are expert in their content and also in designing instruction. So before teachers are able to participate in writing, they participate in that professional learning to prepare them for the work. They learn about tools and common language and our systematic approach to developing curriculum, so that ensures consistency across content areas and levels. Teachers attend the Curriculum Design Institute, and we also had a new refresher course for secondary writers, the Curriculum Writers Symposium this year. So this summer, we had 252 teachers working on curriculum, and you can see a lot of the content areas that are listed here all over the district and all through the summer. So we're very proud of that work, and it goes on every summer here in Plano ISD. The last thing to highlight was just the back-to-school learning. As you know, teachers, all staff came back last Thursday. We had our great kickoff event on Friday morning. And then before that, our new teachers were here for 3 days. 1 day at campus orientation, 1 day for district orientation with a keynote from our superintendent, Sarah Bonser, and then 1 day with curriculum specialists and coordinators to help them learn how to access curriculum. Our teachers, all the teachers had yesterday and today time with our curriculum department where they focused on curriculum content. Our elementary really honed in on literacy and math for these 2 days. And secondary had a curriculum collaborative, which is a conference-style learning system, and then they also worked in their content areas with their coordinators. So just again wanted to highlight the dedication of our staff across the district through the summer to take opportunities to learn. We do have job-embedded learning that goes on throughout the year, but summer is a great time for them to do that a little more concentrated and to really pursue their choices. So.
Thank you.
See, could I clarify? I think we had a misunderstanding, David. I wanted to clarify your question if I could. The number that Matt shared was our pre-KK, so it included about half of that enrollment were students going into kinder, which I think is the program you were actually asking about. And then about half were kinder students who had just finished kindergarten. So that number is about 600.
But it started with about 30 at Huffman about 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. So from 30 to 600.
Yeah, that's
Still
what
not
I
bad.
recall. And I remember we had the conversation after the first year. We had tremendous growth after even just 1 year. So the fact that we're getting, we're 20 times the number of kids that we started with is fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And now, countdown is on. Summer learning is over. School's about to begin. We'll now move on to the policy section of the agenda. At most of our board meetings, we have policies on the agenda for board consideration. These policies have undergone prior review by the district's attorney and by each board member. I invite Carla Oliver, Assistant Superintendent for Government, Community, and Planning Initiatives, to introduce the policies we have on the agenda this evening. Ms. Oliver.
Thank you, President Bender. I'd first like to bring to your attention FNF Local, Student Rights and Responsibilities Regarding Interrogations and Searches. It's presented for adoption under second reading this evening.
Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Trustees adopt FNF Local under second reading.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Yoram Solomon and a second by Nancy Humphrey that the Board of Trustees adopt FNF Local under second reading. Is there any discussion? We will now vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Item B.
Thank you. We have a couple of policies related to our District of Innovation Plan, DOI. For instance, DL Local, presented tonight regarding workload, is presented for approval under first reading and will be presented for adoption under second reading at a subsequent meeting.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Trustees approve the first reading of policy DL Local.
Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a motion by Jerry Chambers, a second by Yoram Solomon, that the Board of Trustees approves the first reading of policy DL Local. Is there any discussion? We will now vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Item C.
EEB Local, Instructional Arrangements. This policy relates to class size and it's presented for approval under first reading tonight and again will be presented for adoption under second reading.
Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Trustees approve the first reading of policy EEB Local.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Yoram Solomon, a second by Jerry Chambers, that the Board of Trustees approves the first reading of policy EEB Local. Is there any discussion? We will now vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Item D.
EIE Local, Academic Achievement, regarding retention and promotion. It's presented for approval tonight under first reading and will come back to you as a second reading.
Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Trustees approves the first reading of policy EIE Local.
Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a motion by Nancy Humphrey, a second by Yoram Solomon, that the Board of Trustees approves the first reading of policy EIE Local. Is there any discussion? We will now vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Item E.
Thank you, President Bender. I would like to mention on item D, with that approval, first reading, we gave our dual enrollment program and its official name of Collin College Dual Enrollment. Just FYI. Item E is FNCA Local, Student Conduct. Dress code is presented for adoption under first and final reading this evening.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Trustees adopt policy FNCA Local under first and final reading.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Yoram Solomon, a second by Nancy Humphrey, that the Board of Trustees adopts policy FNCA Local under first and final reading. Is there any discussion?
I would like for you to know that this rumor is flying through the high school, so they all know to take good pictures. I speak from knowledge of a specific person. A person.
Take pictures of.
Their ID pictures. They want their ID pictures to look good because they have to wear them around their neck.
Okay.
All right, we will now vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously, 7-0.
They could be opting to take the worst picture ever, so that's good they're doing their best.
I have one of each.
Item F?
Yes. EIF Regulation, Academic Achievement, graduation is presented for approval under second reading this evening.
Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Trustees approve EIF regulation under second reading.
And do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Yoram Solomon, a second by Jerry Chambers, that the Board of Trustees approves EIF regulation under second reading. Is there any discussion? We'll now vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Two more. Item G.
EIF Exhibit C, Academic Achievement. It's in regard to graduation as well and is presented for your approval tonight under second reading.
Do I have a motion?
I move Go ahead, Yoram.
I move the Board of Trustees approve EIF Exhibit C under second reading.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Yoram Solomon, a second by Jerry Chambers, that the Board of Trustees approves EIF Exhibit C under second reading. Is there any discussion? We will now vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. It's very hard to see at the ends of the table here. Motion passes unanimously, 7-0. All right, last policy, item H.
GKD Exhibit C, Community Relations. It's in regard to the non-school use of school facilities, and it's presented for review under first reading this evening.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Jerry, all yours.
I move that the Board of Trustees approves the review of Exhibit GKD Exhibit C under first reading.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Missy, I have a question.
Oh, okay. So I have a motion by Jerry Chambers, a second by Yoram Solomon, that the Board of Trustees approves the review of Exhibit GKD, Exhibit C under first reading. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to ensure that these fees don't apply to student clubs, for example, the lacrosse clubs of high schools using the stadiums.
Let me go to the exhibit just a moment, and I'll review that.
I know they fought hard for access, and
Right,
$2,000 a game would be unaffordable. And these are students of ours.
I do not believe that they are subject to that, but I would like to make sure in the draft of the policy.
Double check a couple. Ms. Richards, you talking about any fees at all, or just that amount of fee?
$2,000, that amount of fee.
Yeah.
So is there another?
We can check on the fees. I know they are given a break on the rentals because there are some hard costs on the facilities as well.
So are those?
And they are. There's and I think it fluctuates from year to year. The other thing on the clubs is sometimes the clubs are not purely made up of students that are attending our campuses. Mm-hmm. There's students that go to outside the district and even live outside the district, but yet are on those teams. So they literally are a club type team. So.
Well, I'm making reference to the lacrosse clubs at our 3 senior highs.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right, and I know, I have knowledge that in the past there have been students, but I think that's certainly something that if the school club were to be told 100% have to be students from your school, and that'll save you $2,000 a game, mm-hmm. they would be in line with that. I just want to ensure that there's no hidden change in the policy from what those students were paying last year, whatever it was, right, to what they'll be paying in the future.
And Ms. Richards, for your benefit and for the rest of the trustees, when Dr. Cooper mentioned that there would be hard costs associated with that, when we apply that kind of principle, and I'm not typically the one who does that, but I do understand in implementing the policy that means we don't incur a revenue. It would be for preparing that facility to be ready for the next activity. It would be cleaning if there were restrooms open, that kind of thing, so that we would not collect revenue as we might for a general rental.
No, I completely understand.
Sure.
There are costs to turn the lights on. I just want to make sure that this is not a hidden change to the practice of the last 2 or 3, 4 years.
And
when we had this whole room filled with PISD lacrosse kids.
I'll double check, but I don't think for that specific, those groups, that's the case. Okay. If this is for outside groups, rentals, potentially playoff games, whether other organizations from outside the school district.
That's fine.
That clarified.
That was just the best attended school board meeting of the last 4 years. And those kids all came, and they spoke quite eloquently about wanting to play in their own stadiums.
We'll make sure you get that information.
So just a further point of clarification, using that rationale, so this is
an outside organization that's created a school club in name under the senior high or some school, could other soccer, other club sports do the same thing and then have access to our facilities in the same way?
We would need to discuss that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think if we're going to, I mean, what we added here was transparency to
Right.
say for our athletic fields, this is the cost, because we didn't have that transparency.
Right.
So we were not having same rules.
Right.
So whatever the rule is, can we just document the rule so that it's fair to everybody?
Right.
I'd also like to check in. It seems like, at least my experience with Plano Senior High, the lacrosse team were an official club of the school. They had a school sponsor that allowed them to meet. They were allowed to be in the homecoming parade because they identified themselves as a PISD club. Their athletic piece is different, but I'd like to have some clarification on that as well, because I think that's where that connection is unique versus just anyone randomly coming.
Right. And just to clarify, I'm not stating that the current or upcoming roster of any of the 3 senior highs are not pure. I just know in the past that it can vary from year to year and of whether they are or not. So I just want to clarify that.
Well, certainly in schools the size that we have, having places to belong, a school club, whatever they may do, lacrosse or crochet, is important for our kids. And so we shouldn't do anything that diminishes the right of children to participate.
Right.
So this is for first reading. When you come back, you'll have a little bit more info, please.
Yes.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? We'll now vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. 7-0. Okay, that's the last policy. Okay, we'll now have the conclusion of the public comment session. We move to the conclusion of our public comment session of our agenda, which is inviting speakers who signed up prior to the start of the meeting in accordance with board policy to address the board. 15 minutes will be allotted for speakers wishing to address the board about topics relating to non-agenda items. Each speaker has up to 3 minutes. If you're not finished speaking at the end of your 3 minutes, I will interrupt you so that we can move to the next person. Ms. Oliver, do we have any comment cards for non-agenda items?
Yes, ma'am, we do. We have one. Would you like for me to go ahead and introduce that person, or is there more you need to read? Just want to be sure.
Let me read a little bit. I remind the speaker of the guidelines I provided earlier regarding the public comment session. If anyone has any questions, please let me know, and I'll go over the guidelines again. Let me just keep it real simple. You have 3 minutes. Secretary is Nancy Humphrey. She'll give you 3 minutes on the timer. When you have 1 minute left, she'll signal that you have 1 minute left. Please begin to wrap it up. If you go over, I'll ask you nicely to conclude your remarks. If you have any questions in your comments that you're asking of the board, because it's a non-agenda item, we are unable to answer those questions directly, but we can, if it's appropriate, direct you to a staff member who, after the meeting, can answer your questions. Okay? Let's begin.
I apologize, I can't read their first name specifically, so I'll ask for either Mr. or Mrs. Ratliff to come to the podium.
Over here? But there's no microphone there?
No, there is.
There is?
It's
Okay.
just lying there.
Over
on
here,
the-
please. You may begin.
All right, thank you. I agree with your comment where you said you didn't want students to, I guess, be left out from participation. So what I wanted to discuss tonight was I'm a parent of a child who is a member of the Plano ISD marching band, senior high school. What I've looked at here over the last couple of years being in Texas, we're coming from North Carolina, is the cost of being in that marching band. This year I paid $990 for my child to be in the marching band along with the color guard. My issue here is that when we looked at the cost breakdown, I understand the need for bands and band directors to have someone to go in and musically arrange your show, but to have an individual band paying $60,000 and $70,000 for someone to come in and design your show, which is thereby pricing out some students in your district from being able to afford to pay, when we have band directors and assistant directors who should have the skill set to design a show, because that is what their degree is in, which is music or music education, which teaches that as a fundamental part of their curriculum. If they can't do that piece, why are we employing them? Because that will also drive the cost down that they are charging students. For a student to be paying $600 and $700, when you look at some students in certain districts where you have 25% of your students on free and reduced lunch, if you have a 200-member band, now you have 50 students who, if they can't afford to pay for food, how can they afford to participate in an extracurricular activity where you're charging them between $600 and $1,000? And to get an excuse from any director of band that says, well, at least our costs are lower than the fees of some of our peers in North Texas is astounding. That shouldn't be the case. To also have a difference of policies within PISD, where you have some schools that say, if you're in an auxiliary piece of the band, you have to also participate in marching classes, where you have some schools that say you can be in an auxiliary and you don't have to have a marching band class. Why is there not one standard across PISD that says one way or the other so that you don't leave this up to individuals? My ask is that we cap fees across the district as it pertains to the senior high schools and high schools for these children, so that kids aren't being priced out of an opportunity to participate in the fine arts. You mentioned the Recapture that Texas does, where you're recapturing fine arts budgets to fill budget gaps, and the parents are being forced to have to go into the boosters and pay in extra money to fund that cost, so band directors don't have to write their own shows. Again, for me, I don't deal well with that. It's somebody being hired and then you be able to farm that off. That's like a principal saying, well, my job is to go in and evaluate teachers. I'm going to pay somebody else to do my evaluation, and I'm going to charge the teacher for me having them do it. It just doesn't make sense. But I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. If there is no further business before the board, the meeting will be adjourned, and the time is 9:12 p.m.
Okay, I just want you to be able to reuse. I hate that. I don't wish that.